Sure.
How did the life before 1918 reflect into your life? The history of the past Russia, the Tsarist times, like from Peter the Great on? Did you ever have any touch to it, any connection? I understand that it was totally denied, like it was never there. I grew up in Finland during and after the war, and this was the rumors we got. They don't know anything about, they don't know anything, it says there was nothing. Is that true?
We had some version of those times in history classes. How true it was, I have no idea, but I remember learning something about it. But I think I learned more about, for instance, the 17th, 18th century from historic novels. Like there was a Soviet author named Vladimir Kozlov who was extremely popular in the late 1980s. And his novels were mildly controversial because he offered a slightly different look at those historic events that we were actually taught at school. And there were like elements of sex and other things that were not generally accepted in Soviet literature. I mean, this very popular Russian author, Boris Akunin, I think he's quite popular internationally, not just in Russia. I think what he's doing basically was done by that guy, Valentin Pikul, 20, 30 years before him. It's just in the same, totally in the same vein.
There's a part in the novel where I think it's in Red Square, where Igor sees a monument in Old Russian about something from that era, and it happens, and then it moves on, and it seems strange to me, like it didn't make sense when I translated it. So I asked him,
used from the whole thing.
So I asked him what it was about, and like what that's doing there, and what we should say about it, and he said, well, I think Igor didn't really know what it was about either.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of add a line that said I didn't really know what it meant, because otherwise it just didn't work.
Yeah, actually, I think I said already about this narrator being kind of an alter ego. There is some autobiographical stuff in this novel. I mean, of course, it's not exactly autobiographical, but there is a lot of stuff that's actually happened to me, and that's a visit to Moscow. I did visit Moscow when I still lived in Mogilев back in 1985. That was my first visit. The difference being that I went with my older brother, not with my father. And I remember that monument you just mentioned that I didn't really have any clue what it was about. It was like first time on Red Square, of course. But I was so impressed by those towers, like the mausoleum, things like that. The monument, who cares? Yeah, so that's kind of an autobiographical moment in the book.
I have another one. You were part of Soviet Union, so you were not one of these like they are now. But how did the Soviet Union television affect you?
Television?
Did you watch programs that were broadcast like from Moscow?
Of course. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. I think that's something that should be explained. We had just 2 networks. These days, it's really hard to imagine it. But we had only 2 networks. One network was actually an all Soviet network, which was broadcast all over the Soviet Union from a studio in Moscow, and the other network was local, Belarusian. It was broadcast from Minsk, and basically all choices we had for television were coming from those two networks. And of course, if there was a television series, like it was hugely popular because there was just one television series broadcast at a time, and everyone spoke about it, everyone knew all the characters, everyone was waiting for the next episode to be broadcast, and even singers, bands that were on television, they were hugely popular because they were there, and there were just a handful of them. And even these days, years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, those bands and singers, maybe there were about 10 or 15 of those, they still remain popular. Even those, there are like hundreds, dozens or maybe hundreds of new artists with older generations. They are still extremely popular because everyone who lived in the Soviet Union knows them and remembers them.